discussion. Center for Contemporary Indian Studies attached to the FGS University of Colombo in collaboration with the Katika Forum based in Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo, together hosting this very important discussion. We all are anticipating taxing us in part of the Sri Lankan nation state. So as a result, we all are like, responsible to pay our taxes. So even though we don't have a full audience today here on site, now there are many are going to join us through online. So given the fact that this is a very important and very pertinent issue, so I hope that a lot of people will pay their attention to the discussion. So I would to come and really have a seat here. Before we start the panel discussion, let me give a brief introduction to our panelists, because we have two professional, two scholars from more the professional field, and also we have two academics to discuss today the topic. So we have Mr. N.R. Gajendran, who is the founder of the Gachman and Company, which is a leading firm of chartered accountants in Sri Lanka. He is a senior partner, a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, with over 30 years of post-qualification experience in various fields. He was a council member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. He has a substantial consultancy experience in finance management and advisory services, accounting and audit. Right? His area of specialization includes international taxation, acquisition and mergers, and reconstruction of privatized enterprises and consultancy. Mr. Gajendra, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, your participation will be extremely appreciated. And we have Mr. Eranda Kodituaku, who is from the field, from the Department of Inland Revenue. Before his career at the Inland Revenue Department, he was a deputy director at the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Eranda possessed a Master's of Business Administration in Taxation from University of Sri Jayawardenepura, and also Master of Economics from Ruhuna University. So thank you so much for both of you all joining us today. And we have Professor Sirimal Aberatna. He doesn't need any special introduction, but let me just say it. Professor Sirimal Aberatna is a professor in economics, University of Colombo. And he has earned his PhD from the Free University of Amsterdam, MA and MPhil degrees from National Institute of Social Studies, Hague. He has been a visiting fellow at the universities in Japan, Vietnam, Australia, Italy, and serves as a consultant to many international organizations, government agencies, corporate sector organizations in Sri Lanka. And we have Professor Amitalingam. Really sorry, I forget your name here. Who is also from the Department of Economics. He's a professor of economics. He works both as a researcher and development consultant with a special interest in migration, displacement, public finance, and Sri Lankan economy. He has been a consultant to the Presidential Tax Commission 2009 and a member of expert committee to formulate National Sustainable Development Vision of Sri Lanka 2030s. So thank you so much. So we have a very able panel to discuss this very important issue. A few years ago, the very same government came up with a tax policy to reduce the policy, and then we walk into a kind of terrible trouble. So now the same government with a new leader, so it seems to be now reversing it, and with the new tax policies. So this will have a serious ramification for the nature of the Sri Lankan state and also the Sri Lankan society, and also like particularly like, the people like us who are the professionals and the academics, we all be subject to the tax cuts. So we are not only concerned about how much we are going to lose from next month onward, but we also concerned about how much this tax policy will change the face of the country and how it will impact on the justice in this the country as far as our society is concerned. So let me invite first our professional experts to give us a kind of a overview about the current nature of the current tax policy. And then afterwards, I would like to invite our academic colleagues to dwell on that and respond to that and maybe raise questions. So may I invite Mr. Eranta Kodituak to like start the presentation and then followed by Mr. Gajendran. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I thanks you invite me this type of forum, tax knowledge sharing and tax education. It's the main things government to do implementation new taxes. But in Sri Lanka, 2002, we introduced VAT, value added tax. No taxpayer education system followed before that. Then 2016, we changed our IRD system to RAMIS program. No taxpayer education done that time. Current situation, income tax changes will apply with effect from 2023, January 1st. But no taxpayer education. That's why so many people talking about taxes. In that scenario, your university, you are trying to conduct this type of forum, it is very better. මම ඔබට ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකක්. මේ ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකේදී අපි කතා කරන්නේ දැනට ලංකාවේ අලුතෙන් හඳුන්වුණු බදු ක්‍රමය සහ බදු ක්‍රමය කොයි විදියටද සමාජයට යන්නේ, කොයි විදියටද බදු ගෙවිය යුතු වන්නේ සහ අපට ඔබට මට මේ බදු වෙනස්කම් කොයි විදියටද බලපානවද කියලා පැහැදිලි කරන්න. ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකේ සමහර ස්ලයිඩ්ස් ඉංග්‍රීසි වලින් තියෙනවා, සමහර ස්ලයිඩ්ස් සිංහලෙන් තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඔබට ඕනෑම ප්‍රශ්නයක් භාෂා දෙකෙන් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපට හැකි උපරිමයෙන් අපි ඔබට ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපට ලබා දිය හැකි උපරිම දැනුම ලබා දෙන්න සූදානම් වෙලා තමයි මේ දේශනය පටන් ගන්නෙ, මේ ෆෝරම් එක පටන් ගන්නෙ. විශේෂයෙන්ම ඔබතුමන්ලා විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ආචාර්යවරු හැටියට හෝ මේ රටේ වෙනත් වෘත්තිකයෝ හැටියට බදු ක්‍රමය ගැන හිතන්නේ නැහැ. ඔබතුමාලාගේ රාජකාරී මට්ටමේ බදු ක්‍රමය හෝ බදු නීති හෝ බදු නීතියට බැඳීම ගැන කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි උගන්වනවා, අපේ දැනුම දෙනවා, අපි සර්විස් එකක් සපයනවා. ඒ තුලින් අපට ඉන්කම් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා. රජයේ යම් බද්දක් කපා ගන්නවා. අපි එහෙම සරල ජීවිතයක තමයි හුරු වෙලා හිටියේ. නමුත් මේ අලුත් බදු සංශෝධනයත් එක්ක හැමතැනම කතා වෙනවා රුපියල් ලක්ෂයකට වඩා මාසික ආදායම් ලබන හැමදෙනාම බදු ගෙවන්න වෙනවා කියලා. එහෙම වුණාම ලංකාවේ බොහෝ පිරිසකට මේ බදු දැනෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. අන්න ඒක බේස් කරගෙන තමයි අපි මේ කතා කරන්නේ. මම ඔබට ආදායම් බදු නීතිය සහ නීති අනුව අපට තියෙන බැඳීම, ඇයි අපි කොහොමද මේ බද්ද රටත් වෙන්නේ කියන කාරණා ඇසුරෙන් තමයි ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එක ඉස්සරහට කරගෙන යන්නේ. අපි කරගෙන යමු ඉස්සරහට. මුලින්ම මේ උපයන විට බදු කියලා එකක් තමයි ලංකාවේ අඳුනලා දීලා තිබුණේ. නමුත් 2019 අවසාන වෙනකොට නව රජයක් බලයට පත් වුණා. ඔවුන් මේ උපයනයට ගෙවීමේ බද්ද සම්පූර්ණයෙන් අහෝසි කරා 2019 දෙසැම්බර් මාසේ ඉඳලා. හැබැයි අහෝසි කරාට නැවතත් අත්තිකාරම් පුද්ගල ආදායම් බද්ද කියලා. නැත්නම් ඇඩ්වාන්ස් පර්සනල් ඉන්කම් ටැක්ස් කියලා ඒ අයින් වෙච්ච උපයනයට ගෙවීමේ බද්දම වෙනත් නමකින් නැවත හඳුන්වා දුන්නා. හැබැයි මේ 2019 දී මේ බද්ද වෙනස් කරලා අලුතෙන් හඳුන්වලා දුන්නු බද්ද ක්‍රියාත්මක වුණේ 2020 4 වෙනි මාසේ 1 වෙනි දින. මේ ඇඩ්වාන්ස් පර්සනල් ඉන්කම් ටැක්ස් එකට අදාළ සම්පූර්ණ නීතිමය පදනම පනත ඇතුලෙන් තිබුණාට පනත තුලම දක්වලා නැහැ. එතනද කියලා තියෙනවා පනතේ 83 වන වගන්තිය යටතේ මේ ඇඩ්වාන්ස් පර්සනල් ඉන්කම් ටැක්ස් එකට අදාළ නීති රීති අදාළ ක්‍රමවේද දේශීය ආදායම් කොමසාරිස් ජෙනරාල්වරයා විසින් ගැසට් කරනු ලබන බව. එතකොට 83 වගන්තිය යටතේ ඔබට පේනවා ඇති මේ පැත්තෙන් මේ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එකක් දාලා තියෙනවා. මේකට යන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා මම පෙන්නන්නම්. මේ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එක මේ වන විට අන්තර්ජාලයට මුදාහැරලා පබ්ලිෂ් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා මේ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එක ආදායම් බදු නීතිය යටතේම නීතියක් බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නීතිය යටතේ තමයි මේ ලක්ෂයකට වඩා බදු උපයන අය ආදායම් කරන්නේ මොන විදි ආදායම්ද ඒකට ඇතුළත් කරන්න කියන එක සඳහන් වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි ලක්ෂයකට වඩා ආදායම් ලබන අය බදු වෙන ආකාරය ආදායම් බදු පනතෙන් දක්වලා තියෙනවා 2017 අංක 24 පනතෙන්. අපි කරගෙන යමු ඉස්සරහට. මෙන්න මෙහෙම කොමසාරිස් ජෙනරාල්වරයා මේ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එක දැනට ඉෂුව කරලා තියෙනවා. මේක අපිට පුළුවන් බලන්න. මෙන්න මේක තමයි සේවා නියුක්තියක් කියලා කියන්නේ. මම මේ ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකේ ඔක්කොම බදු කරුණු ඇතුළත් කරලා නැහැ. ඔබට වැදගත් වෙයි කියලා හිතන හැම කරුණක්ම මම ඇතුළත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මීට අමතරව තා මොන හරි දෙයක් තියෙනවා නම් අපි සාකච්ඡා අවස්ථාවේදී ඒක කරගෙන යමු. එතකොට සේවා නියුක්තිකයෙකුගේ ඔබතුමන්ලාට මේක සම්බන්ධ වෙනවා ඇත්ත මේ උඩ එකත් මේ යට එකත් වෙන්න ඕනේ බොහෝ දුරට. අපි කොතන හරි රැකියාවක් කරනවා. ඒ රැකියාවට අපට වැටුපක් විදියට ආදායමක් ලැබෙනවා. ඒ ආදායම තමයි මේ කාරණේදී බද්දට යටත් වෙන්නේ. 195 වගන්තියට සේවා නියුක්තිය අර්ථකථනය කරනවා. ඒ අර්ථකථනය මේ කියන කාරණා සියල්ලෙන්ම ආදායම උත්පාදනය කරන අය සේවා නියුක්තිය කියන ආදායම් ප්‍රභවය යටතේ ආදායම් උත්පාදනය කරපු අය බවට පත් වෙනවා. මෙන්න මේ සේවා නියුක්තිය ආදායම යටතේ උත්පාදනය කරපු ආදායම් ප්‍රමාණය මත තමයි ආදායම් බද්ද පැනවෙන්නේ සේවා නියුක්තිය කියන ප්‍රභවය යටතේ. ප්‍රධාන බදු ආදායම් ප්‍රභව 4කින් එකතු වෙන ආදායමට තමයි බද්ද යටත් කරන්නේ. පළවෙනි එක තමයි සේවා නියුක්තිය ආදායම් ප්‍රභවය. දෙවෙනි එක ව්‍යාපාර ආදායම් ප්‍රභවය. තුන්වෙනි එක ආයෝජන ආදායම් ප්‍රභවය සහ හතරවෙනි එක වෙනත් ආදායම් කියන ප්‍රභවය. බොහෝ දුරට ඔබතුමන්ලා මේකේ පළවෙනි ආදායම් ප්‍රභවයට ඇතුළත් වෙයි. සමහර කෙනෙක් ව්‍යාපාර ආදායමකුත් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. තවත් සමහර කෙනෙකුට පොලියක් හෝ ආයෝජන ආදායමක් තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. හරි. එන්න මේවා සේවා නියුක්තියෙන් ලැබෙන ආදායම් ලෙස සැලකෙනවා. ඔබට මේ කියන මොනවා හරි ලැබීමක් තියෙනවා නම් ඔබගේ ආදායම විදියට වර්ෂයක් තුල ඒ ආදායමේ එකතුව තමයි බද්දට යටත් වෙන්නේ. විශේෂයෙන්ම වැටුප් තියෙනවා. ඒක අපි කවුරුත් දන්නවා. ඊට අමතරව පෞද්ගලික දීමනා ගෙවනවා නම් අපේ සැලරි ස්ලිප් එක ඇතුළෙම යම් දීමනාවක් එලවන්ස් එකක් ඇතුළත් වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් වැටුපට අමතරව ඒ සියලුම එලවන්සස් මෙහිදී බද්දට යටත් වෙනවා. ආවිදියකට ආයතනයක් තමන්ගේ සේවකයන්ගේ යම් බිලක් ප්‍රතිපූර්ණය කරනවා නම් යම් බිලකට දාලා මුදල ගෙවනවා නම් ඒ ගෙවීමත් මේකෙදි ආදායමක් විදිහට බද්දට යටත් කරන්න සලකා බලනවා. ඊළඟට ප්‍රධාන කොට මේ ආදායම ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රභව දෙකක් ඔස්සේ බලලා තමයි මේ සේවා නියුක්ති ආදායම ගණනය කරන්නේ. පළවෙනි එක තමයි මූල්‍යමය වශයෙන් ලැබෙන ප්‍රතිලාභ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපට වැටුප් විදියට, ප්‍රමාද වැටුප් විදියට, දීමනා විදියට, දිරි දීමනා විදියට, ප්‍රවාහන දීමනා විදියට, නිවාස දීමනා විදියට මොනවා හරි දෙයක් එකතු වුණොත් මුදලින් ලැබිච්ච සියල්ල සේවා නියුක්ති ආදායමේ කොටසක් වෙනවා. ඒ සියල්ලේම එකතුව අපි මූල්‍යමය ප්‍රතිලාභ යටතේ ගණනය කරනවා. හැබැයි සමහරලාට මූල්‍යමය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභත් ආයතන තම සේවකයන්ට දෙනවා. ගෙයක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්, ක්වාටර්ස් එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්, වාහනයක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්, ගෙදරට සේවකයෙක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. සමහර විටක ආයතනය වෙළඳපොලේ පවතින පොලි අනුපාතයට අඩු පොලි අනුපාතයක් යටතේ ණයක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. උදාහරණට වෙළඳපොලේ දැන් පවතින පොලි අනුපාතය 130 නම් අපි 102කට ණයක් දුන්නොත් ඒකද බෙනිෆිට් එකක් විදියට සලකනවා. ඒ බෙනිෆිට් එකත් අපි කැල්කියුලේට් කරන ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවා මම ඒක කියලා දෙන්නම්. ඒ යටතේ ඒකත් එකතු කරනවා. තවත් සමහර ආයතන තමන්ගේ සේවකයන්ට විදේශීය සංචාරයක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. පෞද්ගලික සංචාරයක්. ඒකට මුදල ආයතනය දරන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න එහෙම ආයතනය දරලා මුදලක් දීලා නම් ඒ මුදලත් මේ මූල්‍ය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභ යටතේ අපි බද්දරටත් කරනවා. ඒකත් එකතු වෙනවා සේවා නියුක්ති ආදායම ගණනය කරද්දී. මෙතනදී කරන්නේ සේවය නියුක්ත වීම උදෙසා පෞද්ගලික වනසේ ලැබෙන සියලුම ආකාරයේ ප්‍රතිලාභ මුදලින් වේවා මුදලින් නොවේවා ඒ සියල්ල බද්දට යටත් වෙනවා. තව විදිහකට කිව්වොත් අපි හිතමුකෝ මගේ දරුවාගේ අධ්‍යාපන වියදම ආයතනය දරනවා කියලා. ඒ බිල් එකේ amount එක බද්දටත් වෙනවා. සමහර විට ඒක මට ගෙවන්නේ නැහැ. කෙලින්ම এডুকেෂන් ආයතනයේට ආයතනය ගෙවන කියමු. ඒකත් බද්දට යටත් වෙනවා. මේ தත්ත්වය තුල සේවා නියුක්ති උදෙසා ලැබෙන සියලුම මූල්‍යමය සහ මූල්‍ය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභ ඔක්කොම එකතු කරලා එන අගය තමයි මේ බදු ගණනය කිරීමට සලකා බලනු ලබන්නේ. ආයතනයෙන් තෑගි දුන්නොත් ඒ තෑග්ගේ වටිනකමත් ගණනය කරන්න වෙනවා. මම මේ ආශ්‍රිත තැනැත්තෙකුගේ ප්‍රතිලාභය කියලා කිව්වේ උදාහරණයකට මගේ දරුවෙක්ගේ ප්‍රතිලාභය උදෙසා මගේ ආශ්‍රිතයාගේ ප්‍රතිලාභය උදෙසා ගෙවුවා නම් ඒ ගෙවීමුත් මගේ ආදායම විදියට කැල්කියුලේට් කරනවා. ඒක මුදලින් මරණය කරන්න බැරි නම් ඒ අවස්ථාවේ තියෙන වෙළඳපොළ වටිනාකම ගණනය කළා ඒ අගය වැටුපට එකතු කරන්න ඕනේ. මූල්‍ය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභ ගණනය කිරීම මුදලින් ලැබෙන එක නම් අපිට ලේසි. මුදලින් නොලැබෙන එක ගණනය කිරීමේ පළවෙනි එක එන්නේ ආයතනය තම සේවකයාට මෝටර් රථයක් දුන්නොත් කොහොමද අපි ඒක කැල්කියුලේට් කරන්නේ? ආයතනයේ සේවකයාට දෙන්නේ 1800 cc වලට වඩා අඩු එහෙම නැත්නම් කිලෝවොට් 200ක ඉලෙක්ට්‍රිකල් වෙහිකල් එකකට වඩා අඩු පෙට්‍රල් ඩීසල් වෙහිකල් මේ ආකාර එකක් නම් පෙට්‍රල් හෝ ඩීසල් 1800 cc කාණ්ඩයට වඩා අඩු එහෙමත් නැත්නම් ඉලෙක්ට්‍රික් වෙහිකල් එකක් 200යි කිලෝවොට් වලට වඩා අඩු නම් ඒ වාහනය දුන්නොත් ඒ වාහනයට රුපියල් 20000ක් එකතු කරනවා මාසෙකට. රියදුරුට රුපියල් 10000ක් එකතු කරනවා මාසෙකට. තෙල් දුන්නොත් තෙල් වලට රුපියල් 20000ක් එකතු කරනවා මාසෙකට. රියදුරුත් තෙලුත් වාහනයක් දීලා නම් ආයතනයක් තමන්ගේ සේවකයෙකුට 1800 cc වලට වඩා අඩු රුපියල් 50000ක මුදලක් මාසික සැලරි එකට මූල්‍ය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභ ලෙස එකතු කරනවා. ඒ වාහනය 1800 cc වලට වඩා වැඩි නම් රුපියල් 75000ක මුදලක් ඔහුගේ ආදායමට එකතු වෙනවා. එකතු වෙන්නේ වාහනයට 35000කුත් ඩ්‍රයිවර් වෙනුවට 10000කුත් තෙල් වෙනුවට රුපියල් 30000කුත් එකතු කළා 75000ක අගයක් ඔහුගේ වැටුපට එකතු කරනවා ඒ මාසයේ බදු බැඳියාව ගණනය කරද්දී. මෙහිදී සමහර විටක ආයතන දීලා තියෙන පුළුවන් වාහනයක් රාජකාරී ගමන් වලට කොටසයි රාජකාරී සහ පෞද්ගලික ගමන් දෙකට සම්පූර්ණයෙන් දුන්නත් කොටසක් වශයෙන් දුන්නත් ඒ දෙකම සලකන්නේ ඔහුට ලබා දුන් පෞද්ගලික ප්‍රතිලාභයක් විදියට. සමහර ආයතන යතුරු පැදි දෙනවා. යතුරු පැදියක් දුන්නොත් තෙල් සමග දීලා නම් රුපියල් 5000ක් එකතු කරනවා වැටුපට. තෙල් නැතුව දීලා නම් රුපියල් 3000ක් එකතු කරනවා වැටුපට. ඊළඟ කාරණේ තමයි නිල නිවාස. නැත්නම් ක්වාටර්ස් එහෙමත් නැත්නම් නිවසක් දෙන. නිවසක් දීලා නම් ක්වාටර්ස් එකක් දීලා නම් හෝ එහෙම නැත්නම් මොකක් හරි වාසස්ථානයක් දීලා නම් ඒ වාසස්ථානය වරිපණම් ප්‍රදේශයක නම් වරිපණම් නැති ප්‍රදේශයක නම් සහ වතු බංගලාවක් නම් කොහොමද එකතු කරන්න කියලා මෙතන කියනවා. එතනදී ගණනය කිරීමක් කරන්න ඕනේ තමන්ට ලැබෙන සාමාන්‍ය වාර්ෂික වැටුප ගණනය කරලා ඒක 12න් බෙදහම එන ගාන අපි කියනවා මාසික සාමාන්‍ය වැටුප කියලා. මෙන්න මේ මාසික සාමාන්‍ය වැටුප ලක්ෂ 2කට වඩා අඩු වෙන අයට ට්‍රීට් කරන විදිය එකක්. ලක්ෂ 2කට වඩා වැඩියෙන් ලැබෙන අයට ට්‍රීට් කරන විදිය දෙක. ලක්ෂ 2කට අඩු වැටුපක් නම් අර මාසික ඇවරේජ් සැලරි එක ඒ අයට ගයක් දීලා තියෙන්නේ වරිපණම් ප්‍රදේශයක නම් ඒ සැලරි එකෙන් 12.5 අගය සහ 20000 කියන දෙකෙන් අඩු අගය ගන්නවා. ඒ ගෙට ගෘහ භාණ්ඩ දීලා නම් ඒ ගෘහ භාණ්ඩ වලට තව අමතර රුපියල් 5000ක අගයක් හෝ අර ග්‍රොස් සැලරි එකෙන් 2.5 කියන amount එකක් වලලා අපි එකතු කිරීමක් කරනවා. මෙන්න මේ එකතු කිරීම නිවාස පහසුකම කියන මූල්‍ය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභයේ අගයේ විදියට එකතු කරලා ඒකත් වැටුපත එකතු කරනවා බදු ගණනය කිරීමේදී. අමතරව ඔබට පේනවා ඇති හොටෙල් පහසුකමක් දීලා නම් පෞද්ගලික සංචාරයකට හොටලයක් අපිට සංචාරයක් දුන්නා නම් ආයතනයේ බිල ගෙවුවා නම් ඒ මුළු බිලේම අගය අපේ ආදායමට එකතු කරනවා. මෙතන විශේෂයක් තියෙනවා සහනදායී ණය පොලී කියලා මම කලින් කිව්වා. මේක ගොඩක් ආයතන කරනවා. ඒ ආයතන තමන්ගේ සේවකයන්ට සහන පොලි අනුපාතයක් යටතේ ණය දෙනවා. උදාහරණයක් අපි 2% පොලි අනුපාතය යටතේ ණය දීලා නම් ඒක ඔහුගේ එතන සේවය කරන නිසා ලබා දීපු ණයක්සේ සලකන්නේ. ඔහුට දීපු ප්‍රතිලාභයක් ලෙස ඒක අපි ගණනය කරනවා. මේ කොමසාරි ජෙනරාල්වරයා නියම කරන අගයක් තියෙනවා. මේ පොලි අනුපාත අගයට වඩා අඩු අනුපාතයට කියන්නේ 9.08 කියන රේට් එකට වඩා අඩු අනුපාතයට සහන ණයක් දීලා නම් අපට අන්නේ සහන ණයේ 9.08ත් අපට දීපු සහන ප්‍රතිශතයේ අතර වෙනසින් භාගයක් නැවත එකතු කරනු ලබනවා අපගේ වැටුපට මූල්‍ය නොවන ප්‍රතිලාභයක් විදිහට බදු කාර්ය සඳහා ගණනය කරද්දී. මේකේ ඔක්කොම එකයි ටෙලිෆෝන් බිල හෝ ඇනුවල් චාර්ජස් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒකෙන් 150ක් නැවත එකතු කරනවා. මෙතන පටලවා ගන්න එපා. අපේ සැලරි ස්ලිප් එකේ ටෙලිෆෝන් එලවන්ස් කියලා තියෙන එකෙන් භාගයක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ ටෙලිෆෝන් එලවන්ස් කියලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒ මුළු එලවන්ස් එකම පද්දට යටත්. හැබැයි බිලක් රීම්බර්ස් කරනවා නම් අන්නේ බිල් amount එකෙන් තමයි මේ භාගය කියන එක සලකලා බලන්නේ. බැයි මෙන්න මේ කියන ඒවා සේවා නියුක්ති ආදායමේ කොටසක් විදියට ගන්නෙ නැහැ. නිදහස් කිරීමක් තියෙනවා නම් හරි අවසාන රඳවා ගැනීම බද්දක් විදියට යම් දෙයක් අපට දීලා නම් අවසාන රඳවා ගැනීම බද්ද ආයේ වෙලා නම් අන්න ඒ කොටස සේවා නියුක්ති ආදායමට ගන්නෙ නැහැ. ඊළඟට අපි සමහර වෙලකට ආයතනික සේවකයෝ ආයතනයේ ප්‍රධානියා වෙනුවෙන් දරන්න ඕන වියදම් ආයතන වියදම් දරලා ඒ වියදම් ප්‍රතිපූර්ණය කළා නම් ඒක තමන්ගේ පෞද්ගලික වියදමක් නෙමෙයි. තමන්ට පෞද්ගලික ලැබුණු සහනයක් නෙමෙයි නිසා ඒක ගන්නෙත් නැහැ. සෞඛ්‍ය රක්ෂණ වෛද්‍ය ප්‍රතිපූර්ණයක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ ප්‍රතිපූර්ණය ගන්නෙත් නැහැ. හැබැයි ඒක එක එක්කෙනාට වෙනම නෙමෙයි සමස්ත සියලුම කාර්ය මණ්ඩලයට එක විදියට ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. මේක වැදගත්. මේ සේවා නියුක්ති ආදායම ගණනය කිරීමේදී කිසිදු අඩු කිරීමක් කරන්න බෑ. ග්‍රොස් සැලරි එක කීයද ඒ ටෝටල් amount එකම ටැක්ස් එකට ගන්නවා. මුදල් පදනම් මතයි මේක ගිණුම් තබන්නේ. කියන්නේ ලැබෙන අවස්ථාවේ අගය ගන්නවා. පරණ මාසයක පඩියක් මේ මාසේ ලැබුණොත් ලැබිච්ච වෙලේ තමයි අපිට ගන්න සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ. ඊට ඉක්මනට යනවා. මේ බදු අය කරන විදිය තියෙනවා. මෙන්න මේ විදියට ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේක ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරලා බලන්න පුළුවන් වෙබ් එකේ. මම දාලා දෙනවා IRD වෙබ්සයිට් එකට ගියාම ඒකේ පබ්ලිකේෂන් වල තියෙනවා එපිට් ටේබල් කියලා. ඒ යටතේ බදු අය වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එක මේ ටේබල්ස් ටික අපිට ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරලා බලන්න පුළුවන්. අර මං කිව් ටික මේකේ තියෙනවා. අතිසිය හරි අපේ බද්ද රඳව නොගත්තොත් ආයතනයත් බැඳී සිටිනවා ඒක ගෙවන්න. මේ අර ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න ටේබල් ටිකේ විදිය මේක ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගත්තාට පස්සේ මේක බලන්න පුළුවන්. නිසා මම ඉස්සරහට යනවා. වැදගත්ම හරිය කරන්න ඕන වෙන නිසා. මේක වැදගත්. අපි හැමෝම අපේ මූලික සේවා නියුක්තිය තමන් වැඩ කරන තැනයි කියලා ආයතන ප්‍රධානියාට ලේඛනයක් බාර දිය යුතුයි. ඒකට කියනවා මූලික සේවා නියුක්ති ප්‍රකාශය කියලා. ඔබට මේ පාර වැටුපෙන් කැපෙනකොට මේ මූලික සේවා නියුක්ති ප්‍රකාශය ඔබගේ accountant ඉල්ලා සිටී. මේක දුන්නේ නැතොත් ඔබගේ වැටුපේ බිඳුවේ ඉඳන්ම ටැක්ස් රේට් එක ඇප්ලයි වෙනවා. මේක දුන්නොත් ලක්ෂයක් අයින් වෙලා ඉතිරි ටිකට රේට් එක ඇප්ලයි වෙනවා. මේක ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මෙතන තියෙනවා ප්‍රයිමරි එම්ප්ලොයිමන්ට් ෆෝම් එක ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් වල ෆෝම්ස් ගිහිල්ලා ඒක ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මෙන්න මෙහෙම තියෙනවා ප්‍රකාශයක්. මේ ප්‍රකාශය ඔයගොල්ලෝ හැමෝටම බාර දෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා වැටුප ලක්ෂයට වඩා වැඩි නම්. සේවා නියුක්ති ප්‍රකාශයක් ඉදිරිපත් කළා නැත්නම් 100ට බිඳුවේ ඉඳන්ම බද්දටත් වෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. හරි. ඊට අමතරව මේ කැලලත් කියන්න ඕන එකක්. මීට අමතරව තමන් වෙන ආයතනයකට ගිහිල්ලා දේශන පැවැත්වීමක් ඉගැන්වීමක් විභාග පරීක්ෂා කිරීමක් හෝ කරනවා නම් ඒකට අදාළ ඒක ද්විතීයික සේවා නියුක්ති විදිහට සැලකෙනවා. කෙසේ වෙතත් ලක්ෂ ඉක්මවන පේමන්ට් කරනවා නම් 105ක බද්දක් ඒ ගැන රඳව ගන්නවා. මෙන්න මෙතන තමයි ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නේ ඇති වුණේ. 2018 දී ලක්ෂ 12ක බදු සහනයක් තමයි අපේ ලංකාවේ පුරවැසියන්ට තිබුණේ. වෘත්තිකයන්ට හිමි වුණා ලක්ෂ 5ක සහනයට අමතරව තව ලක්ෂ 7ක සහනයක්. ලක්ෂ 12ක් බද්දෙන් නිදහස් වුණා. නමුත් 2020 ජනවාරි මේක මිලියන 3 දක්වා වැඩි කරා. එතකොට අපේ අවුරුද්දට මිලියන 3ක් වෙනකම් බද්දටත් තුන්නේ නැහැ කාටවත් බදු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබුණේ නැහැ. නමුත් නැවතත් 2023 ජනවාරි මාසේ මේක මිලියන 1.2කට අඩු කරාම අපි හැමෝටම ප්‍රශ්නයක් එනවා. මිලියන 1.2කට වඩා ආදායම් උත්පාදනය කරන වැටුප් ලබන හැම දෙනාම බදු ගෙවිය යුතු වෙනවා. මම අවසානයේ එක එක්සැම්පල් එකක් පෙන්නලා මෙහෙම වියදම් සහනය කියලා එකක් තිබුණා. මේක අලුත් බදු පනතත් එක්ක අහෝසි කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට තිබුණ අර මිලියන 3ට අමතරව වියදම් සහනය කියලා දරුවන්ගේ අධ්‍යාපන වියදම් අපේ නිවාස ණය සහ වගේ සෞඛ්‍ය වියදම් වගේ වියදම් වලින් ලක්ෂ 12ක් අයින් කරගන්න ඒ සහනයත් අයින් කරලා තියෙනවා 23 ඉඳන් මෙහෙම සහනයකුත් දැන් නැහැ. මෙන්න මේ විදිහට බද්ධ ගණනය කරන්නේ තක්සේරුණ ආදායම් ටික එකතු කළා මිලියන 3 අඩු කළා ඊට පස්සේ වියදම් සහනයකුත් තිබුණා සූර්ය පැනල වලට ලක්ෂ 6කුත් තිබුණා මේ 6 ඉඳන් 18 දක්වා රේට් එක කලින් ඇප්ලයි වුණා. මෙන්න අලුත් වෙනස මේ වියදම් සහනය නැහැ මිලියන 3 1.2කට අඩු වෙනවා සූර්ය පැනල සවිකිරීම දීවලා තියෙනවා 6 සිට 36 දක්වා ඒ රේට් එක වැඩි වෙනවා. මේ එක්සැම්පල් එක කියලා මම නතර කරන්නම් ඊට පස්සේ ඕගොල්ලෝ අපි සාකච්ඡාවේදී ඉතුරු හරිය බලමු. මෙතන මේ මම දාලා තියෙන්නේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල මහාචාර්යවරුන්ගේ වැටුප. බේසික් සැලරි කවුද කියලා නෑ බේසික් සැලරි එක තියෙනවා මේ ලැබෙන ටික එකතු කරාම 4,57,468ක් එයාට මාසික වැටුප විදියට ලැබෙනවා. මේ 2022 ලැබිච්ච එකක්. එතකොට එයා 2022 දී මේ 4,57,468ට බදු නිදහස් දීවන ඇප්ලයි කළා 12,448ක් මාසික බදු ගෙව්වා. අවුරුද්දේ බදු ප්‍රමාණය 1,49,000 ආසන්න වශයෙන් ලක්ෂ 1.5කට සමාන වුණා. හැබැයි අලුත් බදු පනත අඳුනලා දුන්නත් එක්කම මේ සේම් සැලරි එකම සැලරි එක දැන් ඒක මාසයකට 91,189ක් ගෙවන්න වෙනවා. අවුරුද්දකට ලක්ෂ 11කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් ගෙවන්න වෙනවා. හරි. ඔක තමයි තත්ත්වේ. අපි සාකච්ඡාදී තුරු ටික කතා කරමු. මම මේ බ්‍රීෆ්ලි ඉන්ට්‍රොඩයිස් කරේ මේ මොකද කාලය නිසා අපි ඉස්සරහට බලමු.
බොහොමත් මේ ස්තුතියි රන්ද මහත්තයා මේ අපි අතරම heart attack එකක් දීලා තමයි මේ නැවතුනේ මේ සාකච්ඡාව. මම හිතන්නේ ඉදිරියට අපිට කතා කරගන්න බැරි තරම් තත්ත්වයක් ඇති වෙයි. මේ thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Mr. Gajendra. You're also free to present your presentation, and I also would like to hear from you how far this will enable us to reverse the current crisis. Would it really enable us to come out of the thing, or whether this is just a way of increasing the government income? Thank you. Singer. They must have felt sorry and they invited me because I was partner. Just spoke about the tax and I finally he concluded with the impact of the tax. We had had many challenges in this country over the last few years. Go into the Zoom, right? We have had many man-made disasters. First, I think in 2018 we had the political coup in 2018. You remember that, where the government was thrown out by the then president. Then in 2019, again, we had the Easter Sunday attack and some decisions were made recently. 2019, we had the election, change of government. We reduced taxes in precipitous proportions. No one imagined, no one asked for it, and we reduced it. Thereafter, we had the COVID. That is only one nature's creation, but in generally that is also man-made, you see. Then we had other calamities, catastrophes and cataclysms, disasters created by our politicians and dealers, where we had the fertilizer issue, we have exchange crisis, we have imports for restriction, we have a shortage of medicines, we had fuel crisis, people died in the queues. And the reality is being felt now. I'm just explaining with a simple example which you all can understand. Say before 2019, if you had 100,000 rupees, and if you are not an income taxpayer, and you use that entire 100,000 rupees for your consumption, what would have been your situation if you got 100,000? The VAT was at that rate was 8%. So 8,000 goes for taxes, 92,000 you would have had. So you had real value of money for 92,000. The same person was liable to tax, and say he was at the highest marginal rate of tax, and that was only 18% from January 20. That also happened over 9 million rupees, that 18% came. Up to 9 million rupees, your effective amount was 540,000 rupees. He would have paid 8,000 rupees as VAT. He would have paid another 18,000 rupees as income tax. You would have had 74,000 real money. Now come recently, now you're from January, someone said from next month pay your salary will be cut. No, this month you're getting cut, not next month, January. What happened? Our indirect taxes, you know the difference between indirect and direct taxes, in the form of VAT and social security contribution. VAT has gone up from 8 to 15. Social contribution levy is 2.5%. And if you are studying tax, social security levy contribution is cascading tax. You would have learned these terminologies. Most of them are all economic students, or no, general, right? So cascading, that means that you pay tax on tax when it goes through the supply chain. You know, unlike in the case of VAT, you get relief for the taxes you pay on your procurement, that you call it in input tax, output tax minus input tax only. So there is not cascading technically. If full system is, VAT system is in place. But in the case of social security levy, it goes through many channels. It is 2.5%, as the case may be, will be cascading. So the effective rate of indirect taxes, generally I count it as a 20%. The cascading effect. So if you had 100,000 rupees, and if you are not an income taxpayer, you would have paid 20,000 rupees as taxes
for your consumption and 80,000 rupees. But if this 80,000 rupees is not really 80,000 rupees now. In 2019-18, it was our exchange rate was about 180, 190, and now we are 360. So our value of the money dropped by 100%. So if you have 80,000 rupees, your real value becomes 40. Then if you see the supply chain mismatches, that is the demand and supply mismatches, because of COVID and other factors, the supply couldn't, it's a supply side problem where they couldn't cater to the demands and the prices skyrocketed 3-4 times. So it's another 50% you have to depreciate by and large because your prices are 3-4 times before most of the prices. So from 80,000, it became 40 and now it's half 20,000. So when you had 92,000 of real purchasing power money, now if you can work these numbers, it's about 20,000 or less the purchasing power. And this is the time at which you are being imposed tax. Take in the case of person who is paying tax. Earlier you had to wait till 9 million to get 18%, highest marginal rate, the highest tax than individual you pay. Now it is 36%. And that is when you exceed 3.7 million rupees, that is over 300,000 rupees or more. If you make, it is going to be 36% then. So if a person earned 300,000 rupees a month, Eranda gave an example of 450,000 rupees. If you paid 300,000 rupees a month, earlier you would have paid about 3,000 rupees. But now you will pay 40,000 rupees per month in tax. So if a person is paying income tax and say he's paying at the highest marginal rate, now every other person can pay. Because if you see even a three-wheeler driver, if he's going to, he may be making 4,000 or 5,000 rupees for him to live. He'll make 150,000 rupees because money has a lot of value, no? And it is, so 300,000 is very soon. People are asking for salary increases. So if you get 100,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees goes, another 36,000 goes, say, if you have the highest marginal rate, 56. So balance is 44. You discount it by 50%, 22, and another 50%, 11. So 11, 12 rupees only you have. You know, that is the reality of the situation. Why, if you see, this is the first time in my career in this field, over 40 years, I have not seen people protesting against taxes in that sense. Now they are not protesting against consumption taxes. They are protesting against income tax. Why? They pay. Most of the people have to decide whether they are going to pay or you are going to basic requirements to enjoy a minimum quality. That is food, nutrition, education, traveling, healthcare. That's the problem. Friends, it's always unpleasant. No? Hard-earned money, you're working, you're earning the money, why should you pay? But it so happens, in a democratic country, there are certain essentials that this government has to provide for. Education. Education is not your fundamental right. If it's not your fundamental right, sorry, it is your birthright. My children, my son or daughter, or any child on the road must have that same equal opportunity for that education. It's not education is not something only for the privileged. So the government has to provide for. Similarly, healthcare. Government has to. It doesn't mean every person should be given free. That's what is the problem in our country. Even if my child goes to a government school, he gets free education. A person who can't, from the low rung of the society income levels, he goes also, he gets the free education. That is the mismatch. So education, healthcare, your basic housing, nutrition, those are entire people have to get at affordable prices. Transport, water, sanitation, those they have to. So their taxes are unpleasant, but you have to pay. You can't help it. But when it becomes unbearable, why is it unbearable? Because at this point of time, all the people are saying, you don't mind paying taxes, but at this point of time, it's a double whammy. The purchasing power has dropped, and you're coming and asking us to pay the taxes at the same time. When it becomes unbearable, the government the tax loses its legitimacy, right? The tax has to, everything, it has to have a legitimacy, a rightfulness. It loses the legitimacy. And when that happens, the government can get destroyed. You know, earlier government got destroyed because they reduced taxes overnight, right? And they relied on printing money. But now you have suddenly put up the taxes, which is unbearable, and you can't bear. One question, how many of you all feel that taxes are now unbearable? No one is going up. There, no problem, no. No. That is income tax. Consumption tax is there. You know, from the time you are born till you die, you are paying tax. Sometimes the air you breathe, this air I am paying tax because they are conditioned, right? So there are two certainties in life. There are only two certainties in life. One is death, another one is taxes. That's the reason we fear both. Why? We don't know how the tax will impact us, and we don't know when we will die. If you know when you're going to die, you will never fear death. You know that's the day you are going to die. So you don't fear. Here we fear, it is about that. And do you think the government has lost the legitimacy now? Yes or no? People who think yes, put government legitimacy. Legitimacy means you feel they have the mandate. They have the mandate. Okay. But if you see, they have lost because of the multiple factors. People are now asking for whatever right and side election, whether that will give the answers or not, it is the question. Then also when you go to the budget side, it is like your home budget. Your income has to be good enough to meet your expense. The budget has to be efficient. That means expenditure has to be financed by your income. If your income drops, what happens? You will try to curtail your expenses. Then if it is not enough, you might borrow. If you are lucky enough, someone will gift you. You will beg, borrow, or steal sometimes. What our government, why it is losing credibility is, they are putting pressures on you on the income taxes. The taxes are expected to go from by 69% from 2022 to 2023. 69%, they are expecting the revenue. I don't know if the revenue officers can collect those taxes. I don't think they can collect the taxes 69%. Because the economy is shrinking, people's incomes are dropping, and they are unable to pay. But the credibility. The expenditure went up by 1.4 trillion. 1,000 billion is a trillion. 1.4 trillion, but the revenue at 69% increase is less than that 1.4 trillion. So if you keep on expenditure high, your budget will be a deficit. Then you have to borrow. If you can't borrow, you will print. And we have double whammy deficit, the current account deficit at the exchange side and the rupee side. So if you can't, you will have. So if you want, only thing is, they are saying, no, we have to increase these taxes. Otherwise, we can't manage. But all these, some of these authorities, higher ups, even in the finance ministry, they are saying this expenditure, you can't bring it down now. It will take us some time to bring it down. What is that? If you can't have enough money to spend, you can't, if you have no enough income, you can't spend. If that is the case, how come the defense budget is going up from 410% to 550 or 540 billion? 410 to 400. We don't have border issues like other countries. It's an island. But it is, so that is the reason why we are unable, the people are not happy of the taxes. Because in your, when you start working, you will realize, my friends, you will be rewarded if you bring in sales, revenue to a company. In the case of a government, why they are having a budget is they make money in different ways when they spend. And if you have a budget, that budget will be spent. There will be, things will be spent. So what is the solution? You must have a solution. Democracy, we have come to stay as a democracy. Democracy, they say it's the worst form of governance. What's the best we have? The worst form of governance, the best we have. The success and survival and the growth of democracy depends on ordinary people like you and I are expected to perform extraordinary functions. Ordinary people like you and I get into position are expected to perform extraordinary functions. If these ordinary people who expected to perform extraordinary functions fail, democracy might fail. So if the ordinary people must be to perform extraordinary functions, there are two fundamental criteria has to be satisfied. The leaders have to be honest. Other one, they must have critical intelligence, knowledge. Having a chance of exercising a franchise, unless you select or elect leaders who are honest and they are fit and proper, this country will never come right. Never come right, my friends. You can talk all the solutions. You know, we are thinking of a talisman or magician who will suddenly come and give us the problem solution. It won't work like that. Institutions will have to work. People are still talking of entitlement cultures. You know, we want to get this because the politicians are coming in giving, you know, today if you see the newspaper, they are going to give some 2 kilos of rice for people they need. Why are they doing now? Elections are around the corner. You take the rice, but vote correctly. And all over and over again, right? We can't have this debt mentality. What we are saying is, we are going to go with this IMF coming, we will have another $10 billion we can raise. No one is $10 billion free. We are trying to borrow more from the current debt crisis. Who is going to pay that? You will pay. Another 10 years, 5 years, 15 years. You must see how you are going to income. In this country, my friends, all of us know the solution problems and we know the solution. Now everyone knows that. Because of this crisis, every small man knows the problem. Now our problems at macro level is same at the home level. If your incomes can't meet your expenditure, you have to cut your cloth according to the size. You cut the cloth according to the size of the cloth. You have to cut the coat according to the size of the cloth. So it can't. So you will have to make sure that it is going to happen. Otherwise, you are going. It's in your hand. You know, you might say, what can I do? I'm just one person. What can I do? Edward Hale says this, I'm only one, but I'm still one. Because I'm only one, I know I can't do everything, but I can do that still something that you can do. So my friends, the problems we are having here now, solutions, we have two things, keep in mind. Other things are okay. We will say, economists will say, professionals say, institutions will work, good governance, it should work, transparency, all that will happen if two things are there. And the seat. And if second thing is fit and proper people are there, not cronies are there. So my friends, the future is in your hands. You are the younger generation, future in your hands. Some of them are always waiting to run, I think now. The future is in your hands, you know. There was a smart boy who wanted to get better of the teacher. So he caught a bird in the hand and asked the teacher, Madam, is this bird dead or alive? And thought if the teacher said the bird is alive, I'll crush the bird. And if the teacher says the bird is dead, I'll let the bird to freedom. He thought he will win that case. The teacher said, my dear son, the future of the bird is in your hands. My dear friends, the future of your country and future of yours is in your hands, no one else. Thank you very much. All the very best, and you may.
Thank you, Mr. Gajendran. I didn't know that the chartered accountants are very good orators, you know. So thank you so much for your nice presentation and inspiring discussion. So now we don't have much time. Let me invite Professor Sirimal first, and maybe Professor Amithalingam after that. Just maybe respond to some of the things that Eranda and Mr. Gajendra has said, and also maybe this is a university, and where we cannot only talk about the problem, and do we have any alternatives? And yeah, would you like to go first? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for Dr. Sherasinghe for inviting me to speak in this forum. I feel that Mr. Eranda gave you one perspective, then Mr. Gajendra gave you another perspective. My one also, maybe you can feel another perspective. Tax reform in Sri Lanka. These reforms, do you think that will resolve the real issue? So here, I'm going to tell you, there are two principles for better taxation. One is tax system should be efficient. That means a country should be able to generate sufficient revenue for her budgetary obligation. I'm going to show you whether our tax system is efficient or not. Second, the guiding principle is tax system should be equitable. That means poor segment of the society should be protected rather than taxing. So here I'm going to prove that our tax system is not efficient, not equitable at all. Why I'm saying? This is tax ratio in Sri Lanka. Total tax revenue as a percentage of GDP, it is declining, very low. So in 2021, our tax ratio was 7.7%. why our tax ratio is declining. We can say our tax ratio is one of the worst in the world, not in the region, worst in the world. So why our tax ratio is declining? You can see some other countries, we are very close to Ethiopia. When you see your per capita GDP, we are a rich country. Then India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Kenya, Uganda, even Ethiopia. But our tax system is not reflecting our development level. So what is happening? Why our tax ratio is very low in the world? The reasons are, we are expanding our economic activities, but our total taxpayers, 2021, 600,000 plus, and 2021, 500,000 plus, out of 22 million. So narrow tax base. Our government, our tax authority is not looking that aspect, how to expand the tax base. That is one major problem. The second one is our tax authorities are unable to determine the potential taxpayers' income precisely, because we are using 1950s technology, 1960s technology. Where's the digitalization? What about other countries? Even in India, Maldives, Bangladesh, Kenya, Uganda. What happened to our erstwhile paradise? What's happening? Then third one, the digitalization process is very slow. We introduced Ramesh, that I think that's collapsed. That's not working properly. And I have highlighted few issues. Then tax avoidance and tax evasion. When you use old method, old technology, you can't avoid this. Okay. Then coordination. We have 3 different commissioners: IRD, Custom Department, Excise Department, different commissioner, and poor coordination. And I'm not discussing everything. Then unplanned and ad hoc fiscal measures, frequent tax amnesties, tax concession, and in 2019, after the presidential election, the import duty on sugar was reduced from 50 rupees per kilo to 25 cents overnight. What was the reason? Who benefited? The victim is the country. Overnight, within one day, 2019, 1 kilo, 50 rupees to 25 cents. You can see other things. But was reduced from 15 to 8%. The loss, estimated loss was 215 billion. Nation building tax was removed, 71 billion loss. Pay was removed, and again, it was reintroduced. Economic service charge, withholding tax, corporate tax reduced, telecommunication tax, total loss 500 to 700 billion. Okay. Why they did that? Who benefited? Irrational tax cuts. Now we are paying for that. Now we are paying. Then I have proved that our tax system is not efficient. Now I am going to tell you our tax system is not equitable. Why? The low income segments are paying huge tax burden. You can see this. 80% revenue is coming from indirect taxes, but only 20% is coming from direct taxes. Direct taxes are progressive and indirect taxes are regressive, because irrespective of your income level, you are paying too much. But Sri Lanka is deviating from the tax theory. Sri Lanka is deviating from the experience of other countries. Sri Lanka is the only country completely deviating. Why? Why we are not looking at that aspect? And where we are, because I need to compare Sri Lanka. Simply, I can't criticize. I need to prove that. Where we are, we need to compare Sri Lanka with rich countries, because one day Sri Lanka will be a developed country. So what is the situation? Then neighboring countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and some low-income countries. Here you can see, during the development process, we should be able to move from indirect tax base to direct tax base. That is the situation in any country, except Sri Lanka, because our progress is very slow. You can see this. America, 92% is coming from direct taxes. So no contradiction between theory and the economy, because in American economy, agriculture sector contribute only 1%, service sector contribute 76%. No contradiction here. Canada, 79%, Malaysia, 66%, India, 50% is coming from direct taxes. Kenya, low income country, 46%, Thailand 40%, Korea 53%, Pakistan 37%, Uganda. I went to Uganda, they don't have road in the capital city, they have gravel road. In terms of development, Uganda's per capita GDP very slow. They don't have road, but their tax system is better. But Sri Lanka, only 20%, 80% is coming from indirect taxes. So our tax system is not equitable. Here, what are the consequences of this lower tax ratio and over dependency on indirect tax system? Here you can see the poverty compared with 2016, 2019 situation, very dangerous situation, poverty is on the rise. Social inequality, you can understand, undernourishment, 19% populations are struggling with undernourishment. Then when you depend too much on the debt, because when you struggle with lower income, you have to borrow. Sri Lanka is borrowing from domestic sources and international sources to pay for important budgetary obligation. What are the consequences? You can see this, we have announced the default first time in the history because too much borrowing. And, at the moment, we are unable to borrow further. And the only way is increasing taxes. So government is doing that. So as a result of too much borrowing, central government debt more than 105%. Total foreign debt as a percentage of export, when you get $100 from export, you have to pay foreign debt $218. Total debt service, our tax ratio is 7%, but total debt service is 14%, double. This is the dangerous data, I'm telling that, because as a percentage of your total expenditure, total debt service is nearly 50%. When Sri Lanka spends 100 rupees, 50 rupees goes to debt service. Every 100 rupees, 50 rupees gone. 30 rupees goes to public servant salary. So you have only 20 rupees. You can't meet all other budgetary obligations, you have to borrow. So our strategy, development strategy is based on borrowing because we have narrow tax base. A lot of issues there. Then debt service as a percentage of government revenue, 163%. When Sri Lanka get 100 rupees revenue, the debt service, amortization plus interest rate is 163 rupees. So how can you survive? You have to borrow. Again, you have to borrow. And Sri Lanka and Georgia, I have to compare very few slides. Georgia was one of the worst performing countries in the world before the reform. But after reform, what happened to Sri Lanka, what happened to Georgia? Georgia did a lot of good things, fight against corruption. What happened in Sri Lanka in terms of corruption? Are we doing anything here? Then second one, improving institutional capacity. Are we doing that? Third one, reducing number of taxes, but we are increasing taxes. Social security levy, we have introduced new taxes. Third one, reducing tax rate. This is the actual reform. But what Georgia did, reduce the tax burden. But our tax authority, countries, increasing the tax burden. Particularly, we are under crisis situation. During the crisis situation, countries should not increase tax burden, but we are the other way around. So tax complaints through IT enhancement, because Sri Lankan education standard is very high. We are producing a lot of IT experts, but all are leaving the country, saying poor salary, poor working conditions. So IT enhancement also, Ramis we introduced, that's collapsed. So we are depending on Singapore company. So what is the end result? We are unable to expand tax base, but Georgia expanded tax base after doing everything. That's the best strategy. But here you can see the ratio. Sri Lanka introduced VAT here, but after that we are struggling. But Georgia was here. This is the actual reform. This is the actual reform. Okay. So Sri Lanka also should do this type of strategy. If need the proper development agenda, Sri Lanka also should follow Georgia. Okay. So the way forward need comprehensive reform, and tax base should be expanded in Sri Lanka. Potential taxpayers should be identified clearly, and milking visible taxpayers, because we are visible taxpayers, targeting only the visible taxpayers, but potential taxpayers are somewhere else. Government is not doing anything to bring them under tax system. So milking existing visible taxpayers, that will not resolve our problem. Then institutional change also we need. IRD also should be given sufficient power. They are under pressure. Then corruption, as Georgia did. Georgia introduced the system, the new government came out and identified the corrupt people. Even ministers, secretaries were arrested, live telecasting everywhere. The people were watching that. So we have to introduce that type of system. I'm so sorry, the government has introduced 30% tax rate. So this is the situation for us in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Amithalingam. It's excellent presentation. I think now you have taken the discussion to another level with alternatives. So let me invite Professor Sirimal, maybe to respond to some of the things already stated in this forum, and also with your alternatives.
Okay, thank you, Pradeep, and thank you all my panelists who spoke before me, Amithalingam, Gajendran, and Niranda, and you covered what I have to say, most of them, so that I can reduce my time to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and not more than that. Gajendran and I remembered that while I was sitting there, we used to meet almost every year during the budget time in those budgetary seminars. So this is the first time that Gajendran came to university. Thank you for visiting us after all. So I am going to raise only one question because much has been covered. The question is, are we now on the right path after doing all these reforms? Before that, I want to ask one more question. Taxpayers are very angry in this country for two reasons. One reason is the one that Iranda explained, how much you have to pay taxes. I think there are a lot of protests and criticisms, and even the university dons and the academics, I heard that they are also protesting, right? And they are also going to take some trade union measures against the tax revisions, so that all kinds of taxpayers are very angry because they have to pay higher taxes. So that is one reason why taxpayers are angry. The second reason is even worse than that, and that is the one that Amithalingam explained, because we know that we have direct taxes and indirect taxes, these two systems. And the income tax files that the IRD maintains, and Amitabh, you said 500,000, is that right? Earlier I heard that it was around 300,000, but you were the one who said, okay, 500,000. So there are, even the last budget announced that we have to register all citizens who are above 18 years old. So if you get all these registrations, and probably we will end up with 15 million tax files in the IRP. But anyway, the eligible taxpayers should be in millions, whereas we have only 500,000 tax files. So there are millions of free riders in this country who are riding on the taxpayers, the few taxpayers, 500,000, and those few taxpayers are squeezed by the neck. And why the reason? The reason is, the main reason is, he explained a couple of reasons, breaking them into number of reasons, but the main reason is the government does not know people's income and wealth. Unlike in other countries, they develop technology-based systems to know every person's income and wealth. And for some reasons in this country, we deliberately or effectively, we avoided that development at the tax administration part. So as a result, there are millions of free riders. But now I come to answer my question, are we now on the right path? Now, after we did these reforms, and you must have seen the budget, and the government budget, the revenue is 3,400 billion rupees, and the expenditure is 5,800 billion rupees. So which means 2,400 billion rupees. Remember the figure, 2,400 billion rupees short budget deficit. And that 2,400 billion, still the government has to borrow or print money, even during this year, even after we raise taxes so much high. So which means now we are not out of the budgetary problem. So we are actually going to print the, but this is based on assumptions. What are the assumptions? This year, the country, the economy will move forward in this way. So having said that, and the tax rates will apply efficiently and effectively, so the people will pay these taxes unless something happens reverse, because it can also reduce payment because people have to avoid paying taxes. So only if the assumptions work for the budget, then actually we will end up with this 2,400 billion budget deficit, which we have to borrow. Now, every week I am meeting a couple of top rank people, because I am also in one of those committees, and Treasury Secretary is one of them. I think about a week ago, he told me 90% of the tax revenue goes for salaries, pensions, interest, and subsidies. Now, this is where the other problem. So the government, we all say that government has to cut expenditure. 90% of tax revenue is on salaries, pensions, interest on previous borrowings, and subsidies. So where do you cut? 90%. But anyway, the one of the major weaknesses of the budget is actually government has bill. It is a complicated matter, of course, reducing expenditure. Even if you take many areas that SOE reforms, you can't do this overnight. Mattala Airport or Sri Lankan Airline, Petroleum Corporation, Electricity Board, all these things should be reformed, and they are under discussion, which might take a year or 2 or 3, or when the election cycle comes, they might get postponed. So we don't know how we are going to sort out this SOE, the state-owned enterprise problem, whereas we have about 400, around 400 SOEs in this country. Number one. Number two, we have 1.5 million, close to 1.5 million public sector. In fact, government has implemented so many programs to reduce that. Our military is one of the biggest in the world, according to population. So there are areas that expenditure can be reduced, but very complicated, and also it is politically sensitive. So they are not going to do that immediately. So expenditure side, that's one of the problems. So the secretary told me something else. There are 200 billion unpaid bills of the government, accumulated unpaid bills. Government does not have money to pay these bills. For those, largely they are the contractors to the government, including those construction companies. 200 billion piled up unpaid bills, no money to pay. And every month when we meet these people, he's selling, I don't know how to pay salaries next month. I'm waiting to collect salaries. So this is the situation. Are we going to improve this situation with this tax reform? No, because We don't know. We are not certain about the economic growth during this year, number one. And we are not certain about the assumption that even if we all pay that 36% tax rates at the highest, are we going to get this amount without reducing the government revenue? So therefore, it's a quite uncertain situation even at the moment, which might end up in a quite big tragedy also. But anyway, as I said, taxpayers are angry for two reasons, but tell us what are the alternatives that the government can do. Thank you.
I honestly don't know why you all tapped to him, because he gave us a very bleak picture about the country. I mean, today, for the benefit of those who join now, we had a very interesting discussion. Like, Eranda from Indian Revenue started highlighting, giving detailed picture about how we will be taxed, and then Mr. Gajendran also talk about its ramification on our society, and also he delved on like how to really how to get out of it, like as like individuals, what we should be doing. And Professor Amitalingam, he basically took us to a kind of a comparative sense and saying that our issues, and finally Professor Sirimal was saying that yes, the tax going to squeeze our neck, but yet it may not really solve the crisis. So we will have a kind of a double barrel issues. Like on the one hand, we will continue to suffer, but also on the other hand, our crisis will also not be ended that soon. So it's a pretty bleak picture, but this is the reality. So I mean, we are in it. So now, so we can't help. So I mean, with that, let me just open the discussion. I think we don't have much time. If you like to raise some question or maybe interrogate some of the ideas, or maybe to find out whether there is any possibility of finding some solution. So this is the opportunity for you all to raise question. අපිට සිංහලෙන් කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් ඕන ප්‍රශ්න තමන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්න සිංහලෙන් සහ ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට මේ ගැටලුවක් නැහැ. තමන්ගේ නම කියලා තමන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ කෙටියෙන් ඉදිරිපත් කරොත් හොඳයි. අපේ Zoom එකෙන් සම්බන්ධ වෙන සියලුම ග්‍රාහකයන්ට පුළුවන් තමන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ අපිට WhatsApp කරන්න. ඒක මට හම්බුණා. මම මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා අපේ පැනලිස්ට්ලට. Thank you. Who would like to go first? Yes, Nirmal.
Okay, thank you. I was listening via Zoom, and I especially came to ask this question. Yeah, and and what we have before us is the whole economics, and you presented the economic points of view. Especially impressed with actually that's what I fully listened to. The Amir's presentation, which was very convincing, and decided to ask this question only after your presentation. And well, don't you think that this issue is largely political rather than economic? Because so there are the people who are not paying taxes. Why is that? Is that for their own, I mean, can you put the blame on those who evade taxes, right? Or is it something to do with, the authorities, who are being, given the authority to, collect taxes on behalf of people, right? So my suggestion is that, it is something to do with the relationship between our political setup and our economy, I would say since 1977, right? The major, economic policies that, to encourage a group of people to get rich, and also the political elite also grew with the help of that rich segment. So the outcome was that, I mean, there was a kind of very strategically important alliance between these two groups for each other's benefit, right? Outcome was that, you know, they were allowed to evade taxes. So therefore, I don't think that, you know, there is a, I mean, when you look at the way that, you know, the politicians become rich, even the way that, you know, their the abuse of public funds cannot be, you know, I mean, exposed. And how, I mean, if you go dig into the detail, you might realize that, you know, the business, some segments of the business elite accumulate wealth, you know, on behalf of the political elite. You know, their money is, you know, handled by, because, you know, when you go into their accounts, you know, they are not that rich, but, you know, we know how much they spend, right? So therefore, my question is that whether this can be at all handled through, you know, any economic means. So for me, that's fundamentally a political issue which has to be handled politically. So that's my suggestion. And I mean, like.
I fully agree with Nirmal. Simply, we can say tax education is very poor in our country. And many feel that our tax money will not come back. It will be wasted. So we are driven by cash economy. We are not using debit card, credit card as much as possible. Our government is not encouraging us. So a lot of businesses in informal. So the issue is, government should get the information from the potential taxpayers. He or she should declare that. Otherwise, the information should come from somewhere else. What do you mean by somewhere else? You are declaring my profit or turnover is 10 million. You have informed the government, but suddenly you purchase 100 million worth of luxury apartment, you are importing vehicle. Then when you register these assets, the alarming bill will ring. Then immediately government will ask, tax authority will ask, you have informed us, your income is 10 million. Suddenly you have imported vehicle or you have purchased this. So from where you get the money? Then severe penalty. Then the alarm will come the other way around. So everybody will start to pay. So the problem is with the government then, tax authority. They don't have power. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President Singh, yes.
Yes, thank you. I think I fully agree with what Professor Nirmal just mentioned. I think Professor Nirmal mentioned that government do not know the potential income earners, but as I think Professor Nirmal also mentioned, government does not want to know. Not just the government, I think to that equation, we need to add some more elements. Certainly those who involved in tax collection also added into that equation. And also the tax assessors, those who involved in assessing tax to a certain extent, one way or the other involved in that work. And I think as mentioned, the whole issue is how to now, actually the wealthy people do not pay taxes to the government, but they pay taxes to the officials as well as the politicians. So one way or the other, they pay taxes, okay? Maybe the small scale at a small level and the big guys are in a big way. So that is happening one way or the other. I mean, certain taxes are collected, okay? It is a different manner whether it get into the public, coffer. And in this context, I think one of the suggestion, I think as right now mentioned, like registering, buying of apartment and all these things. Now the Google, this map, I think it could be a very good source that you could capture the new buildings and new houses and other things coming in particular. I mean, if adopted, even the now to account for the tourist arrival and tourist related activities, why we go by the satellite accounts and all these things. Now, why not we at least consider of that something of that nature, and what really basically prevent us of using this? Because we don't have a mass scale demand for this. Because even those who pay taxes were given certain concession, and we keep silent. No? Now we have come out in a big way because we are, now taken in a big way to pay. So because of that, we cry, very hard. Okay. Otherwise, if we are given certain some sort of a subsidy, we also keep silent. That is what has happened. I think over the years, government, successive government basically keep the tax payment. I mean, those who target even at a lower rate, and others were not targeted, and both sides were kept silent. Nobody demanded a proper system to collect taxes. So I think I would like to ask why, what prevent Inland Revenue Department of using new technology in identifying the potential taxpayers. If identified, the Gram Nildari can simply send a letter, okay, asking that owner to file a income tax, or at least to basically report his or her level of income. Why? What prevent it happening? Thank you.
I just 1 minute answer to Professor Dunsing's comment. I think a better reporting system should be started not with the Inland Revenue Department. It should be recording using technology, recording all citizens' income and wealth and other basic data. And then obviously, automatically, when you make some unwarranted purchases, as Professor Samathalingam said, and it will be alarmed. So this is the best way of using technology, whereas many countries have used it and developed those systems. And in Sri Lanka, we did not do that. And why we did not do that? Always corruption is associated with this kind of development. And I think if you have a system like that, many people will have a problem of explaining their income and wealth. So the second problem is actually if you are going to implement a system like that, and how many protests will be in this country, even from the general public, so that both sides are comfortable with this system. So we continue with that.
Yeah. I'm also talking about Real's data system, not in that country. That's the main problem. You also raised that. And I and my union also, like my colleagues, they proposed last 3 budgets. We should introduce national data and database and data gathering system also. Budget also include that. And budget also passed with majority. Government has the responsibility to make a national database. But somehow it's not implemented. That's the case of, I think in the last year, we have some people asking, go to the systematic system, real system we implement. But if it is our person, not only politician, I think, government officers and trade union also, somehow they collect the implement part. So many proposals we have, so many ideas also we have. But problem is not the implementation part, it's really done. That's why so many tax changes here. Intelligent units include the department, information gathering system in the department, reporting system, and also using RAMI system and latest technology, but it's not working. Why? If it is some person's expense, some person's expense, some person's earning. That two side also. If we gather that two side, tax system go to the systematically, automatically. In the last year, I remember I proposed the cash post machine introduced to supermarket. If it is introduced, and the VAT revenue collectively, at least transaction may be done, VAT revenue also go to the government account. But we haven't that type of system, and nobody approve the system also like. That's why the problem is we try to, not only one person, Mr. Gajendra Cyprus, we have tried to, one by one, we try to make a sound government to go to the systematic. Not only today, maybe your future, we can try to make a systematic.
I think, friends, all of us know the problem. And we know the answers also. We know what is the problem, we know the answer. Why we are not going from here to there? Why we are not going from here to there? Because the people who are making decisions, with the policy or administration or wherever it is, they are making decision on self-seeking, self-interest, self-enhancing. It is not for the purpose of the country or people. You make a policy not for the country or people. You are making a policy, you gave examples of the sugar deal. It's a policy matter, no? They come and say it's a policy, you can increase tax and reduce tax. So basically I go to two things unless this country puts it to place. This country is in this place because we have robbed, we have been robbed. We have been plundered. Who? Politicians have robbed us for so many years. You can do any taxes, you bring taxes, unless you bring honest people there and competent people there. Only these two things you have to do, my friends. You have to communicate this. Only these two things you have to do. We can talk, we are on expenditure. The secretary also, Srimal, you must go and tell them when they say, you have built up the expenditure. In 2020, you employed people, when we was COVID, 160,000 people. And most of them don't do any work. They don't have any work. 110 billion rupees expenditure. You know, you are having an entitlement culture, populist culture. You are popular because you are giving them the entitlement. So unless you are going to, even if you see even the interest, if you borrow more, you will have to be paying this. And you can't say you can't cut down expenditure. Now, today's day I saw, today the parliament they are saying, minister is saying, we are going to delay payments of salaries. You don't know delay, you won't get your salaries after a while. So unless you are going to bring competent people and honest people, this can't change. It will never change. You can try to raise revenue, it will be spent. How can an expenditure go up 1.4 trillion when we are in a crisis? When the revenue increases less than that, and you will never achieve the revenue, even if you are going to do. So you can raise revenue, unless otherwise we are going to make that correction fundamental. Even the IMF is telling for the first time, corruption vulnerability should be addressed. And you have to minimize it. It won't happen, my friends. So unless you all are going to go and tell them directly, what is this? You know, see the people who are making decisions for us in parliament, fish stings from the head, no. If they are not honest and this, you mean to say that down the line people, the revenue officers, others will be honest. You can't, no. If we, in my any organization, people are looking at the leadership and only and doing, no. Leadership can't say, do what I say, don't do what I do. So if you know, even the expenditure when you increase, you know, recently they have the very high authority people. When you they are gone for a weekend, it's okay. But you took how many? You had taken 35, 40 security staff. 8 or 9 security vehicles. That is because why? Because you have a budget. When there is a budget, you spend. When in our why they are not unwilling to reduce the expenditure. When you spend, you make money. In your organization, you earn only if there is revenue. When you are in government, you spend. So unless otherwise you are going to deal with this will never correct. But a decision has to be made. We will be always asking these questions. We are asking these questions. Why is this? Why can't we do that? We won't do.
Thank you very much. I think because with the time limitation, I think we'll have to wind up the discussion unless you all have pressing question to raise. We would like to, is there anyone who wants to raise a question? Right. Otherwise, we would like to wind up the discussion. This was extremely useful discussion. I mean, we have a question. There are many government-owned businesses make millions of losses to the economy. Thousands of people who live in the country paying taxes for cover the cost. There is a need of privatizing those government-owned enterprises. But there are many political parties and pressure groups standing against the privatization. Professor Sirimal, what is your view about this matter?
I think not only politicians, and we are also part of the problem in this country. So the crisis that we are in today, if we take a broader perspective, I think our civil society has also made that contribution to bring this country to this level. So it is the same thing, same answer that I can give in this question also. There is a need for restructuring, privatizing. I'm not saying exactly to sell it, because there are many complications within which we have to work out many types of restructuring programs, different for different SOEs, state enterprises, and bringing them under one umbrella, that is the government plan now, holding company like in Singapore. So there may be many ways of restructuring these things. But in the past, because we have delayed these reforms for so many years, and most of these enterprises, they have also got the spoon to their hand so that they can help themselves. And so that has also happened in many big as well as small state enterprises. So this is not easy. This is not easy. We can talk about, but selling it Sri Lankan airline, and particularly at the bankrupt level of an economic situation like this, who is going to buy? And also there is a misconception that why profit-making enterprises are sold. So there is a question like that also. Now, telecom is profit-making, and why is it sold? But I would say that profit, you have to define it according to the assets. And if you look at telecom and dialogue, profits as a ratio of assets, obviously there is a problem. And also the telecom company has many other white elephants. That is your money. Whatever the profit that telecom company makes as a public enterprise, that is your profit and public money. But that Hyatt building, hotel building now, so many years on Gold Road, telecom has invested. Litro belongs to telecom, and Lanka Hospital belongs to telecom. There are so many other subsidiary companies created by telecom using the profits that they have made. So is it allowed? So there are many questions that we need to discuss, and why this corruption creep into legal corruption. Not only legal corruption, because they got these approvals at various levels. so that they are doing corruption legally. So these things we have contributed even as general public.
Thank you, sir. I think today we mainly focused on the taxation as a remedy or kind of a solution to the current crisis. I mean, what transpired from the current conversation, today's conversation, this is certainly going to hurt Sri Lankans, and this will not certainly make us come out of the crisis, and we will not stop borrowing. So I wonder whether the cure that the government has proposed is worse than the disease. So I think we'll have to see, like, as a community, intellectual, how to resist and how to, communicate or at least raise our concerns about the current tax regime that they are proposing. So I think we managed to discuss this very well today, like from various perspectives. So thank you so much for the panelists and also for all the participants and those who raised questions and those who join us through our Zoom platform. So this was extremely fruitful and very good discussion. And maybe next session we can discuss on the privatization. I'm sure there are a lot of positive and negative with pros and cons there. So we must discuss that as well. And finally, I would like to thank Center for Contemporary Indian Studies for helping us sponsoring this event, and also the Katika from the Faculty of Arts for organizing this as one of their monthly event. So thank you so much. So have a nice evening.